Hey everyone, welcome back to the Suburban Homesteader. In this video, I'm going to be harvesting our beets. So we probably should have harvested them a little while ago. Usually the smaller they are, the more tender and sweet. Usually, like anything, the longer you leave it, they tend to be a bit more woody and things like that. So we'll see what it looks like. I am planning on using the whole beet, so both the stem and the leaves as well as the actual beet itself. So let's pull them up first, and then I'll let you know what we're going to be using them for. So they're pretty good size. You can harvest them smaller, like I said, if you want to be a bit more sweeter. Now I'm harvesting these in the morning. Usually with vegetables and stuff, the earlier you harvest them, the more moisture content and natural sugar content that they have from overnight. And then as the day goes on, especially when it's hot, those kind of levels drop a little bit. So usually in the morning when it's more moist and more natural sugars, they're supposed to be a bit more crisper, a bit more sweeter, a bit more flavorful, last a bit longer as well. Apparently though, it's an exception of root crops. So apparently with beets and carrots and stuff, apparently they do tend to accumulate even over the day with sugars. So I think with beets it shouldn't matter too much, but usually I tend to try and harvest things in the morning. Sometimes if I'm making dinner, I'll quickly come out and grab some salad greens and stuff, but apparently morning's better. Let me know what you think about that. So they're pretty good sizes so far. I have in previous seasons I've got them, let them go a bit too long and they're quite huge. So these aren't too bad actually. I'm only harvesting the 3 today. This one's a bit bigger. So check that out. So 3 beautiful beets. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to be using the whole thing. So with beets, that was a fail for the chickens. I like to use the whole thing. So with the tops, I usually treat them like a celery. They're really flavorful, really nice. So either, put them in salads or put them in stir fries and stuff. So I do treat them a bit like celery. And they just have a really nice, vibrant color to them. And then the beet itself. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm looking at doing some beetroot chips. So I haven't done beetroot chips before. So I'm going to be giving them a good wash, taking the tops off, giving a good wash, peel, slicing them up. I might even take you along with that actually. And then whack them in the dehydrator. And then depending on how many I get for the trays, if we've got any left over, I'll think of something else to do. But I've got a couple of other beets growing as well. But we'll see what we can do with these ones. So I've brought the beets inside, I've chopped the tops off, and I'll just put them aside because I will use them a bit later for a salad. I gave them a good scrub using a brush that I use for veg just to get all the loose soil off. You do want to really give them a good clean. And then the idea is just to peel all of them. Take out any bits that might not look great. I do chop the ends off a little bit more just because it's a bit more like a woody texture, and just neaten them up a little bit. So when I've harvested our beets before, I've previously pickled them. You do have to boil them and peel them, and then put them in your pickling solution. And then I've also roasted them, and both times they've worked really well. Like I said, I think I let our beets go a little bit too long in the ground. I think one of them was like 2.5 kilos. I think next time I do them, I might want to harvest them a lot sooner, especially when I want to pickle them. I think just having them a bit more sweeter. I just found that, the bigger they are, like anything, they get like a woody texture, or they're a bit more harder. They're not as sweet. They taste a little bit more earthy. I might be wrong. Let me know what you think. But I'm super keen to know what others are doing. If you're pickling them, if you're roasting them, if you've done beetroot chips, if you have any other ways of preserving. But just look at the color of that. It looks so amazing. And you can definitely know you've been working with beets when your fingers are stained purple. So here is the mixture. So I will be putting together the mixture here for the recipe. So I am following the bench food dehydrator recipe, where I got my dehydrator from. Essentially, it's just half a cup of apple cider vinegar, half a cup of water, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and then you do use like salt, sea salt, but that's at the end, once you've thinly sliced and you've stirred the beets around in the mixture. So now let's get to slicing. So I'm just prepping my area, just chopping the tops off like I said, and then I'm just trying to do the slices quite thin and even. It is a little bit difficult to try and get the same kind of size and thickness. Freshly harvested beets are actually quite hard to chop, especially when they're so big. Probably had another better way of doing it. Like I probably should have chopped them in half and then sliced them that way. A bit more easy to handle. I don't know why I did it this way. I've seen that you can also use a mandolin. I've never used one before. I don't know how thin they would get, but I'm also a bit afraid to use one. I just don't want to slice my fingers off. But check that out. Look at the beautiful color there. It's just so vibrant. This is I ended up going to the chop it in half and slice it method. So much easier to handle. I don't know why I didn't do that from the start, but learn for next time. So yeah, I'm just pretty much slicing them all up, trying to get them even as thin as possible. The thinner they are, the better. The better they're going to dehydrate and evenly dehydrate. You don't want them varying thicknesses too much, because some will definitely dry better than others. And because you are putting them all in at once, you do want them to dehydrate quite evenly. So there we are. I tried to get a few, maybe 1, 2, 3 mil thickness as much as possible. It was quite hard, I found, but I did the best I could. Let me know if you have other ways of doing it, but look at that. They're going to be decent chips. I'm so keen to see the end result. All right, so I'm just going to chuck them in the mixture now. I'm just going to dunk them all in. There it is there. All right, all of them are in now. I'm just going to use my hands to give them a good mixture, a good stir. Just try and get them evenly coated as possible in the apple cider vinegar, olive oil and water mixture. So here I'm prepping our dehydrator. So I have popped it back out on the back deck on the table. Just presetting it. I do want to warm it up before I actually get them in. Ideally for half an hour before I start popping the trays in. I am setting it for 57. That's what it says on the recipe, 57 degrees or 135 Fahrenheit. And the idea is to have it on for about 8 hours or so, but I'll keep checking it as well. So here I'm just getting all the beets on the trays. I'm going to be using just baking paper this time. I've seen other people just use baking paper rather than the silicone mats. It's a lot easier to clean up afterwards. But yeah, the idea is just to try and place all the beets on the trays, trying to have them evenly on a bit more spaced out so not touching, for better airflow. Using the baking paper, like I was unsure whether to use the baking paper as like my mat or whether to put them straight on the tray itself. the recipe didn't actually indicate otherwise. It didn't really say, and I had a bit of a look online and it said to use a mat or baking paper. So that's what I'm doing this time around. Next time I might do it a bit differently. Let me know down below if I should have used a tray. I guess we'll find out at the end what it turns out like. But let me know what you do. Like I said, it's the first time doing beet chips. So I'm definitely keen to learn and improve every time I do them. So here I'm just trying to space them out, load it all up. This is probably the most time consuming part, is putting them all on and having them all, spaced, and trying to use all the trays. So our dehydrator is 10 trays. You don't have to use all trays depending on what you're doing, but you have the option there to do as much as possible, and that's what I want to do here. So we'll have a look and see if I end up using all the trays. All right, all the trays are loaded. I did about 6 trays in the end. Here I'm just using the sea salt to do a bit of a sprinkle over the top. I said to put it on after you've already coated them and popped them on the trays. So I'm just sprinkling them all with a little bit of sea salt, and then we'll get stuck into getting them in the dehydrator. I actually feel a bit like Salt Bay here, putting the sea salt on like this. All right, so I'm just loading up our dehydrator. Like I said, it does take 10 trays, but all up I ended up doing about 6 trays. The 6th tray wasn't fully loaded, but that's okay. I do try and maximize the dehydrator as much as possible, but, I'm just mindful of putting different things in the dehydrator at the same time. So that's okay. Next time, I'll just make sure I harvest a bit more. But yeah, otherwise it's looking good so far. So just loading it up. And then I will close the door and let it do its thing. And what I'm going to do is I'll keep checking on it every so often. Hey everyone, so it's the next day. So we'd finished dehydrating the beetroot chips. Look, there's some positive and negatives around it. So they taste really good, but they're a bit leathery than what I would like. I was really hoping, try and get that real, crisp crunch to the chip. So I ended up having to put it on a bit longer than the recipe said. And then I had, busy getting kids to bed, and it must have turned off, the dehydrator must have turned off while I was doing that. Because it's placed on a back deck, whether it's because it got cold, in regards to temperature, when it shut off, whether or not that played a role. I also feel they're probably a bit more oily than I like as well. So maybe less oil next time, and maybe that will help. Another thing that I found really difficult is trying to slice them really thin. So I noticed that some of the thin ones, they had that crunch to them, but the other ones not necessarily. So it's, really hard to try and, break them apart and chew on them. Still tastes really nice, but just way chewier and leathery than I really hoped. So I reckon the kids won't like these ones. But as you may or may not know, it's like quite difficult to get evenly sliced, thin, slices of raw beetroot. So maybe a mandolin might be a better option, whether or not have that consistency and really thin. I haven't got a mandolin. A bit afraid to use one, actually. I've heard of so many horror stories from people losing chunks of fingers. So yeah, look, some positives, some overall things to improve upon. I did use the bench food dehydrator recipe, which is where I got my dehydrator from. I have noticed that what they've recommended from a dehydrating time, I'm having to add a few hours onto it. So it was about 8 hours, and I added about 45 minutes to an hour. Probably needed another hour. But in saying that, because of how oily they are and the thickness, maybe they might not have gotten to the kind of texture I was really hoping for. Yeah. So I'll still eat them. They're still a good little snack. They still taste really nice, and it's homegrown beetroot. But yeah, not as great as what I hoped them to be. But like with anything, as an experiment, I've definitely got some takeaways to try for the next time to see if I can reach the texture that I really want, where, you know, it's quite, you know, crispy, snap off, like in the chip. Whether or not I'll ever achieve that with the beetroot, we'll see. I'll definitely try it again though. I'm not disheartened. But let me know, like, if you've had success with what I'm trying to achieve. If you've had success with the, you know, dehydrating your own vegetable chips, let me know. I'll, you know, highly appreciate any recommendations or feedback you give me. But, you know, it's not to be discouraged. You know, there's going to be experiments. You're going to have fails. You're going to have wins. I'll definitely take some wins away from this. I'll take some things to improve upon and try it again. But yeah, if you have any tips or tricks, let me know. Oh, and from a volume point of view, we've got about 3 loads of these containers. So I separated them into smaller portions so they're easily quick and snack. You know, easy for a quick snack. But there's, yeah, so I filled about 3 of these jars, which I've used in my previous video for our garlic. A little bit clumpy, but I easily break it apart. And then I got these with my Kenwood attachment for the grinder. So I'm just using these jars. They're really easy to use. So yeah, got about 3 of these full. I didn't pack them completely just to try and provide a bit of air still, but otherwise good volume out of, I think it was like 6.5 trays off the top of my head. All right, awesome. Thank you very much for watching this video. I highly appreciate you taking the time out. If you like this video, please subscribe to our channel. Check out some other videos that we have as well. We also have an Instagram page called the Suburban Homesteader AUS, where we post a bit more daily progress and updates. So please check out that and like that page as well. Any comments down below? Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day.